Welcome everyone to my review and video on the DNT Hydra HS225 thermal optic. So, full disclosure, DNT sent this to me because they knew I was going to be cadreing at a Milsim West game, the Ural Line, that just happened a couple of weeks ago in Centerville, Washington. I was a Rust 4 platoon sergeant for that game, and they sent me this optic out to try out and review after the game. And I've also had the good fortune to take it out to the range and out in the woods and shoot it a little bit at nighttime on actual real steel guns too. So I'm going to kind of talk about both of those things in this video. So starting off talking about the Milsim West game, the Ural Line, I had it mounted. This is my actual real steel AK, but I had it mounted just like this on this Midwest side rail, just like this. I just took this and put it on my airsoft AK, same configuration. So it was kind of a standalone thermal sight on my AK. And it worked really well. It worked really fucking well. Additionally, it's kind of awesome because this optic comes with this little mount here, and you can take this little QD lever and pop this thing off, and then it's a standalone kind of handheld thermal that you can use, or you can pass it off to somebody else if, you know, for some reason you don't want to use this thing, even though it's fucking awesome.
I'm retarded?
So, it's got a little bit of versatility there, and later I'll talk about the third option for what you can do with this optic, but it's pretty sick. So using it over the weekend, I usually use this thing to kind of scan as we were patrolling, stuff like that. And we actually ended up on the first night detecting an enemy LPOP using thermals because we could see them in the tree line. They were waiting to ambush our element while we were infilling with our rucks, and we were able to actually get behind a terrain feature, drop rucks in an ORP, and then actually flank around them using the terrain as concealment. There was a hill that we could use, and we maneuvered on them and then actually hit their main force and didn't end up running into their ambush and basically blowing our little surprise that we had for them. So as you can probably tell from that story, things like this thermal are very useful for spotting people. Night vision is really great for navigating at night and stuff like that, and it can be good for shooting and things like that too, especially if you're using lasers or whatever, but it does produce a signature. One of the huge benefits of the thermals is there's no signature from it. There's no laser shining out. I know you can passive aim through nods too.
All right, hey, I want you like down here. Yeah, already on in this area.
Already on it.
All right.
The thermal has much better resolution, and it really just, because it highlights that body heat, it really helps you pick out people specifically, or animals if you're hunting, obviously. But I'm kind of talking about this in a fighting people context because of the Milsim West background and my military background with thermals. So yeah, at distance, even with very good nods, sometimes it can be hard to make out people if they're like in a lot of brush or trees or things like that. But a thermal can really show you kind of that, like, that bright spot that really tells you like somebody's fucking there, unless they are very, very well concealed.
Yeah, roger that. I have a two fallout. There's nothing there of luck. If it's back up the road, give me a brine. Just heads up. I can drop the water and then go back to the medical alert. Not my directive, because that's what it is. It's a Brian.
So I already mentioned kind of the two ways that I use this optic at the Ural Line, as an actual direct mounted optic on the gun standalone, and then as a handheld. But there's a third way that you can use this optic, where you can actually take this mount and put it in front of a normal optic like an LPVO, and then mount this in front of it as like a clip-on thermal sight, which is pretty awesome. There's a different setting. If you go into the settings, and you can actually zero the like clip-on thermal aspect of it, which is pretty awesome. I'll actually show a clip of me shooting through it on one of my ARs. You'll notice there's no reticle visible because I'm aiming through the reticle of my LPVO and then through the thermal. One thing I'd like to point out about the DNT Hydra here is that the battery life is pretty good. They sent me 2 batteries and a battery charger for it. It takes like the little flat-headed 18650s, and they do last quite a long time, even when like recording videos and stuff like that. I probably should have recorded a lot more at the Milsim West game that I did, because I didn't realize how little battery I was going to use. So lesson learned. But another factor with that is, if you can see the little blue light there is on, that means the optic is on. But while it's running, instead of completely turning it off by like holding down the power button and it like kind of counts down and tells you it's turning off, if you just tap the power button, it goes into like sleep mode or standby mode. If you look through it, there's nothing in there, but you can just tap the power button again and it immediately turns back on. It just saves a little bit of power by like kind of being in a sleep mode essentially. So this helps you extend your battery life even more, especially if, say, you're patrolling in the woods all night and you want to have this thing kind of ready to go. You don't want to be like sitting there, because turning this thing on from actually being off takes several seconds. It kind of has to like boot up, essentially like a computer, right? And you might not want it to be doing that if you want to scan something really quickly, like scan a tree line or something. So you can walk around with this thing in standby mode, and then just, okay, you want to flip up one of your nods and scan a tree line really quick, you can just bring this thing up, tap that, and it's back running again. So once you've done that, you just put it right back in standby mode and continue on with whatever you were doing, and it saves a huge amount of battery. So not only is it just easier and quicker to be doing that, but then you don't have to carry as many batteries in the field. I would also like to mention that while I have extensive experience with thermals in the military, using things like the UTM and UTB, which is a big ass fucking thermal, over in Afghanistan, especially when I was on machine gun teams in the Rangers, I don't have a lot of experience with civilian thermals. And the one civilian thermal that I did previously own was a very small kind of handheld unit, which this can actually be. You can just take it off of this little QD mount, and then it's a handheld thermal. But it was pretty crappy, and I got rid of it because I didn't feel like it was actually useful. Frankly, it couldn't really spot anything past maybe 100 yards, and that's under like ideal conditions, I would say. This thing can easily spot stuff 400 or 500 yards out. You know, especially at nighttime when there's more contrast between like the ground and the trees and like a warm-blooded creature, whether it's a person or like a deer or a hog or something like that. You get really good contrast with this thing. So I'm actually really impressed that it's actually able to have such good resolution and contrast even for such a budget optic. I think that's pretty great. Yeah, honestly, I've really been blown away by this thing. Again, it's not going to be some like $30,000 military thermal where you can spot a little fucking mouse at over a mile away or something like that. But for actual like practical real world use, like mounting it on a rifle and stuff, you're going to be able to see stuff within rifle range. Let's just call it. Unless you're in brush that's so dense that it's, you know, blocking out the thermal signature, in which case you're not going to fucking see them anyway that far away. So not that big of a deal. All in all, I've been really impressed with this thing. I would say the only weak point is because it's their more budget model, its low zoom power is 3x. So like if you're kind of scanning things in very close, like you got to watch that, like your field of view is kind of small. If you go up to their higher end models, the lowest power zooms are like 1.5x instead of 3x, so you get a larger field of view. That can help. But honestly, for the price point, it's still really fucking sick. It gives you a huge amount of capability, and I really see something like this as being like a stepping stone for someone who, you know, even though it's like $900 range, it's still significantly less than, number one, much more expensive higher end thermals, and number two, night vision, like actual night vision tubes. A lot of people come out to these games and they don't have night vision at all. Some people rent night vision. That's possible at the games. But obviously that stuff is really expensive. To even get a single tube night vision plus like a helmet and rhino mount or whatever you're using for it, I mean, you're looking at 3-4 grand usually. You can get into something like this. It comes with the mount, it comes with batteries. Like, you can get into this for under $1,000, and then you have some level of night capability, which is pretty fucking sick if you ask me. And actually, like, while the night vision's really good for like walking around in the dark and stuff like that, the thermal is the best for actual, like, once you're in contact. I would say this is the real thing to use once you're in contact. Like, this is your optic that you're going to be shooting through. Yeah, the thermal definitely kind of has the advantage in terms of like bang for the buck. If you're coming out to like a Milson West game and you don't know what you want to buy and you don't want to like totally max out mommy and daddy's credit cards, you know, something like this maybe might be a better option than going with night vision, even though night vision looks fucking sick when you're walking around with it on your helmet. I have to say, overall, thermals have come a really long way, even just in the last couple of years. That I used to view thermals as something that was more expensive than like night vision tubes and stuff like that, because it used to be, if you wanted a decent thermal, you had to get something that was like a military level thermal, and then you're paying like 20 grand for some, you know, big fucking thing to look through. And while I used a bunch of really sick thermals in the military, yeah, like that is way outside of the price range of any like normal person. This is actually bringing it down into like a real price range that a normal person could fucking afford. I mean, if you can afford a fucking rifle that's about $1,000 or whatever, you know, with accessories and whatnot, you can probably afford a $900 thermal optic. So I think it's pretty sick getting more capabilities into more people's hands. I think that's a really great thing. And yeah, I've really enjoyed shooting this thing. Couple of Canadian geese flying over. Pretty sick.